In just a bit, we're going to be visiting with some folks from the North Dakota Parks and Rec Department, and they're going to share some really good information and resources on hiking here in North Dakota. Their website is full of really good stuff. And we're also going to get a sneak look at Turtle River State Park. We've got someone there on the ground, and it's just going to be really cool. So, but right now, we're going to visit with avid hiker and former Public Service Commissioner Susan Weefald. And Susan was also a volunteer AARP Executive Council member at one time. So we know Susan really well. She's from Bismarck, and she has written about her hiking adventures, and she has a book called Spectacular North Dakota Hikes, Bring the Dog. And it's one of my favorites. I flip through it a lot, and it's just lots of cool notes and ideas. So we're going to jump right in now and visit with Susan and flip to this really 12-minute video or so. I think you'll enjoy it. And then we're going to come right back here and visit with the State Parks and Rec people. So Haley, if you'd like to go ahead and roll that video, that would be awesome.
Hi everyone, I'm Doreen Redmond with AARP North Dakota, and I'm so glad to have Susan Weefald with us
I'm
today.
delighted to be here today too.
It's great. We're at Pioneer Park in North Bismarck, right along the beautiful Missouri River, which you can't see. But we are having a really good time, and we're going to talk about hiking today. We know that you have done this wonderful book, Susan, on spectacular North Dakota hikes. And you've done some great hiking trips over the years, and it's so much fun. I love the book myself. Tell us more about how you caught the hiking bug and what has inspired you and your husband to do lots of hiking, especially in your latter years now. You continue to do a lot of hiking.
Exactly, we do. Well, I would say that my parents got me started hiking when I was a girl, and so I caught their enthusiasm for it. But I know a lot of people who don't start hiking until they're in their, 50 years old or so, and they do just fine as hikers. Hiking, when I tell my Girl Scouts, I say, what's the difference between a hike and a walk? And I say a hike is generally when you're out on natural terrain and you are on a trail that's not paved. We can have lots of wonderful walks here in Bismarck or in the other cities around our state. But it is really special to get out on a nature trail, whether you're in the woods or in the prairie or in the Badlands or in the scenic parts of the eastern part of the state, and just enjoy the nature that's around us.
Yeah, well, I love in how your book you've included lots of great notes, especially about your dog Sandy. So if you have a dog along on your hike, she's got all the notes on which trails allow dogs and which ones don't. And some of the notes that Sandy had were just so funny and so cute. And as a dog lover, I really, really enjoyed that. So tell us a little bit about how you put the book together. And you've got some great notes on finding trailheads, which sometimes can be tricky. Talk to us a little bit about how you put it all together. It's really cool.
First of all, I'll talk about Sandy. He was always looking forward to a walk, whether it be 200 miles away or close by. Well, when I wrote the book, one thing that's kind of amusing to me is that you always have an editor when you finish writing your book, and then sometimes they say, Susan, you should rewrite this section, or you need to make some corrections to this. In this book, the quotes that are from Sandy's notes, my dog's notes, no changes were made. I say that means that I wrote like a dog. Yeah. Anyway, he had some fun experiences. I can remember one day we went on a hike, and he found the snake before I did.
Oh, dear.
Noticed that on the trail. He would always be very alert for pheasants and birds, so it was interesting to take a dog on the trail. But by no means does it mean that you have to have a dog to go on these hikes. Bob and I were hiking together long before we had, dogs to take with us, and I've done a lot of hiking since my dog has died. As I put this book together, I did it because I was hiking on vacations all across the nation. And I started thinking to myself, I'm going on special hikes in these places, but I have beautiful spots at home and no one knows about them.
Right.
And we have hiking trails in North Dakota, but no one had written a book that covered the entire state of where you could go hiking. And I thought, this is so sad. We've got lots of hikers in our state. They deserve to have a guide. So anyway, we got this book put together, and I have enjoyed using it myself as well as sharing it with others.
Right. Oh gosh, and it's broken down by region, which I really like. So, you know, you can look at different parts of the state, and you know, you can just kind of see where these different hikes are at, and covering the Missouri Valley area, or maybe going out west. And I know my husband and I did one of your Mattahey treks in here.
Yes.
Last year it was awesome. Kate's Walk, we extended it a little ways and went even further, but it was fantastic, and lots of great notes. Made me feel comfortable as somebody going to find this trailhead that's 35 miles north of Interstate 94 to begin with. You know, it's not just the easiest thing to find. So you have a lot of great notes on that kind of thing.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, as well.
And then
as,
on the history
Yeah.
and the natural environment that I was in when I was hiking. For example, if I was hiking in the spring, I talked about wildflowers that were in bloom then. One of my friends told me that she took this book up to her mother, who was in a nursing home, and read it to her because she thought that, and her mom really enjoyed, she had been to many of these places when she was young, and she enjoyed hearing about these locations again. I thought that was really thoughtful of her.
That's very nice.
Yes.
So, you know, in this book, you have all these great trails. I'm sure you must have some favorites among all of them. Do you have a few that you'd like to
Yes,
share?
I do. And I thought about this morning because, as you say, there's so many great trails. But one of my favorites is called the Kings Highway Trail. And that one's up at Lake Metagoshi State Park.
Oh.
It's just a half a mile from the Canadian border that you start. And as you go along the trail, you're actually very close to the Canadian border.
Oh, cool.
As you look across the lake, you can see Canada, but you're in a mixture of meadows and you're in a mixture of woods. And it is just a beautiful area with ponds and lakes. And it's about a mile and a half walk in and then a mile and a half back, so about a 3-mile walk, which is very comfortable to do in an hour, or a little longer if you're like me, and then you want to go wading in the lake. And so then you need to just sit there by that lake and take your shoes off, you know, and wait a little bit. And so that's a very special place. Another one is the Sibley, here in Bismarck, the Sibley Nature Park Trail. That's down below Mary College on the river bottoms land. It's Corps of Engineer land. It's a 1-mile loop. It takes you through the woods, cottonwoods, old growth cottonwoods, to the Missouri River, where you get great views of the Missouri River, and it's just a very pleasant afternoon walk. Another favorite is Mineral Springs and Waterfall Trail in the Cheyenne State Forest. Many people know about, it's the only waterfall in North Dakota that you can hike to, all right? Anyway,
We have to do that.
and it is right south of the state park that's in that area. But it is on this beautiful area where you go up and down. It's about 165 feet that you have to climb, but that's not a lot in hiking. You go through woods and prairie, and you come to this little glen, and here's a waterfall coming down, and there's a little fire circle there, so you could have a little fire and a picnic if you wanted to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And speaking of picnics, you also have snack and food and beverage ideas.
Yes, I
built
did.
into your book, which I think is really kind of cool and fun. So tell us about some of your favorite snacks and picnic ideas that you have when you're hiking.
Well, the reason I put that in the book was because when you go hiking in North Dakota, you're very rarely near a restaurant. And so you need to plan ahead and know what you're going to eat, because I always get hungry when I walk. And so I tried to share different types of foods that people could take with them on a picnic that are not difficult. For example, on one of mine, I say I brought along a Subway sandwich. Well, you can pick one of those up on your way out of town very easily, and a bag of chips and a piece of fruit. Another time I said I was having fried chicken. Well, that means you could, if you didn't want to make it yourself, stop at Kentucky Fried Chicken, get some chicken, put it in the cooler. You can make yourself a salad, you know, bring hard-boiled eggs, banana bread, makes a great picnic lunch. Or, of course, there's always the things that fit in your, some almonds, some little snack bars, things like this. I love apples because you're getting a lot of fluid at the same time you're crunching along eating that apple. they're easy to eat and they don't get soft, you know,
Right.
in your pack. So, but do plan ahead because you're going to want to eat as you're on the trail. And then in my book, I also point out pretty places that you might want to stop on that hike for a picnic lunch.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. And plenty of water. Take plenty of water and stay
Right.
hydrated. That's another important tip. And
That is a very important tip. In
Yeah.
fact, you're going to ask me about things that have happened on the trail
Yeah.
that are challenging.
yeah, tell me about some of your challenges.
Well, I'd say some of our challenges has happened when we forgot to fill the water bottles.
Oh dear.
Oh dear is right. Just make sure, not like me, that you check all your water bottles before you get started on any hike. And make sure you bring water bottles with you, because even on a day like this, 62 degrees, that sun is out, you're moving, you're going to
Yeah.
get pretty thirsty. So that's one of the most important things in North Dakota. We live in a drier climate, and we need hydration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. Well, we have got some really fun day hikes planned this summer too. We're going to be going to Fort Ransom. In fact, from today, we're excited about that on June 22nd.
That's a
We're gonna
gorgeous spot.
Yeah, we're going to be there at 11 a.m. So anybody out there who wants to join us, please plan to do that. So Fort Ransom, do you have some neat experience down there? Have you had
I
fun
do.
down there?
In Fort Ransom, it's one of my favorite places to go hiking because they have bridges over this beautiful little creek. And you can go back and forth, and it's actually a babbling brook here in North Dakota. Also, there's a hike that goes down from the highest point in the park down to a beautiful farm. And as you're walking down the hill, you can just imagine the settlers there from 100 years ago also traversing that area. You know, it's just so gorgeous. Now,
The other two places we're going to go, Susan, north of Bismarck here at Cross Ranch. We're going there on July 27th, and we're really thrilled about that one too. Do you have some experience at Cross Ranch, I imagine?
Yes, I do. And that is, there's fantastic trails either along the river or on a bluff above the river. Only the only thing is about the bluff above the river, it's still a spectacular hike. However, a fire went through there last spring. And so it's very interesting because you can see the burned out areas from where that fire came. And it fortunately, it didn't destroy any of the buildings in the park. It came within a few blocks of them. But this spring, everything should be lush and green. And so you'll just see some trees that suffered fire damage.
Yeah, it's so pretty there along
It's
the river.
gorgeous.
Oh, it's just, and they have camping facilities there and yurts and
Great place
just
to go
wonderful
for
place.
a hike any time of the year.
Yeah, well, I agree. And then the third day hike we're doing is on August 10th, and that is at Turtle River State Park, and I'm very excited about that. I've not been, and I'm guessing
I
you
have
have
been there
experience
too.
there
Yes, I
Okay,
have.
tell
And
us.
have marvelous buildings built by the CCC up there, and they're along the Turtle River, and it is just a delight to see both the architecture and the natural beauty of that area. Now, I must say that those trails were not the most clearly marked when I was writing my book, and I got a little bit lost there in their woods. But you're never too far from anything, so you could easily find your way back. But I hope that I told them at that time they should
good for
mark
you.
those trails better, and let's see if they've done it when you go up to visit.
Well,
but it's a
great.
beautiful, beautiful place.
Well, they're very excited for us to come, and at all of these parks, all the park managers are going to be assisting and giving some history and background on the parks,
Sure.
and also providing some guidance on the trails. And so hopefully well, thank you so much, Susan. This has been so fun, and we're so eager to get out there and go hiking this summer and do something fun in the great outdoors of our state. And you inspire us, and you just give us lots of reason to want to get out there and go. So thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate your
You're
expertise
welcome.
and knowledge.
I'll look forward to seeing you out on the trails.
Okay, sounds good, Susan. It's a deal.
Well, that was really fun. It was just a great time visiting with Susan. We did a little bit of hiking up there at Chief Looking's Village, which is just looking over the river, not far from where I live and where I get to hike quite a bit. So just a great place. But now I'd like to introduce all of you to Joshua Steffen and Erica Cobo from the North Dakota Parks and Rec Department. And welcome to both of you, and thank you for joining us. And they are both at Turtle River State Park in different locations right now. But Erica, we're going to start with you. If you want to tell us just a little bit about yourself and what you do at the park, please.
Hi, folks. I'm Erica Colbo. I'm the interpreter here at Turtle River, which means I have probably, arguably, in my opinion, the best job in the world, and I get to teach people about nature and do fun stuff like this. So, not everybody gets to say that about their jobs, but I think that's pretty awesome. I came to North Dakota 7 years ago to do this job, and here I am thinking I was going to leave in a few years, and I'm still here. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the role of interpretation for over 12 years. I went to school to do this. So I went for environmental education and interpretation, and I've worked in 3 different states and for local nonprofits to state agencies, to cities, to counties, to, well, now I'm out here in North Dakota doing the same thing for the state. So just a little background on myself, and we're out here off the trail. So this is one of the trails that I would recommend for you guys. This is our Fisher Trail. So it's absolutely gorgeous, and I'll be showing you guys the river and a few different things as we get into the presentation a little bit more.
Awesome. Love it, love it, love it. Can't wait to come up there on August 10th. That'll be great. So perfect. Hey, Josh, and you want to tell us a little bit about your role? And I know you're there at Turtle River State Park too. You're just indoors there. The wind is kind of fierce, so we ended up having to do that. But go ahead, Josh, and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for North Dakota Parks and Rec.
Sure, thanks, Doreen, and hello, everyone. So I am based out of the Bismarck office, headquarters for State Parks and Rec on the Capitol grounds. But I figured we were trying to do something live from the trails, so I'm glad Erica's microphone isn't picking up too much wind. I had to move indoors, but you can still see the bird feeder just outside the window and some of the trees. So trying to make the best of the windy day in North Dakota.
Oh, great.
A little bit about me. I started with Parks and Rec only about 10 months ago, so I'm fairly new to the organization. I'm currently the Education and Programs Chief, so essentially overseeing the interpretation and education and some of the statewide programming that we have in the department. Prior to coming to Parks and Rec, I spent the last 8 years at Dickinson State University. I was a college professor there, taught both agriculture and biology and environmental science courses. So that's kind of my background.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It's great to have both of you on the North Dakota Parks and Rec team. Great to be here. So we're going to turn it over to you now, Josh. I know you've got your presentation ready to go, and you're going to take it away here and go for it. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. So I hope everyone can see the PowerPoint here.
Yeah.
So the goal is just to sort of, talk about hiking in and focusing on the state park system, but more than that, focusing kind of on and touching on some of the other hiking opportunities in North Dakota. So if I can get my slides to move forward here. There we go. So just a little bit about North Dakota Parks and Recreation, just some of the values. And so we really have 5 values that we focus on. So very shortly, we focus on land stewardship. So obviously keeping our parks in a pristine, as native, as close to native environment as we possibly can. And then our main role is to provide service and experiences to the citizens of North Dakota, and also heavily involved, obviously, in the tourism industry. We provide leadership and funding for city and county parks as well. And what we really, and kind of one of my main roles, is to focus on our partnerships. And so creating partnerships, fostering those partnerships, and just getting people to overall collaborate and getting different users to the parks and having people try out new recreational or educational opportunities that are available throughout the entire state of North Dakota. And so when we think about North Dakota state parks, really, again, they're for everyone, right? So there are 13 state parks and 2 recreation areas that we currently oversee. They go from the western part of the state all the way to the east, from north to south. So you can kind of see where they're located over the statewide map here. And they run the gamut from the rugged Badlands in the west, Salt Lake Creek State Park in the southwest, and then Little Missouri State Park north of Kildare. Both have Badlands features. We have 3 state parks on Lake Sakakawea, so obviously heavy fishing and boating, as well as hiking there. And so that's Lewis and Clark State Park by Williston, Fort Stevenson State Park south of Garrison on the north shore of Lake Sakakawea, Lake Sakakawea State Park by Pick City on the south shore. And then, as the video mentioned, Cross Ranch State Park north of Mandan along the Missouri River. And then just south of Mandan, we also have Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park, which is one of our more historical parks, featuring the fort where General George Custer was stationed, as well as replicated Mandan earth lodges in Indian Village. South or near Wishick, we have Beaver Lake State Park in the south central, Fort Ransom, which is your guys' first hike next month in the southeast, Grams Island State Park near Devil's Lake in the kind of the northeast central, Turtle River State Park, which Erica and I are live from today, 20 miles west of Grand Forks. And then in the north, we have, I guess, 3 areas. So in the north central, we have Lake Metagoshi State Park up in the Turtle Mountains. Icelandic State Park is the furthest east part, just outside Cavalier. And then the other bubble there is just the Pembroke Gorge State Recreation Area. And so all of these state parks and recreation areas, again, roughly every citizen in the state of North Dakota is at least within 150 miles of a state park, give or take. And so we're really proud of that. And I'll be touching on some of these first 3 bullet points later on in this PowerPoint presentation. So we'll talk about some of our statewide hiking challenge initiatives and how you'll be able to participate in that in every state park. I'll talk a little bit about our adventure challenge, as well as our passport program in a few upcoming slides. But again, here I just wanted to focus on some of the other overall services that we offer. So obviously, when you think of state parks and recreation, you're thinking of camping, whether that's your primitive tent or, or a small camper up into these, huge motor homes with multiple slide outs, et cetera, that we're seeing in most of our campgrounds these days. We also, some of the parks also offer primitive and full service cabins or yurts. And those of you that go down to Fort Ransom, we also have old horse-drawn wagons that you can actually have overnight stays in as well down there. So in addition to that, obviously boating, fishing, hiking, which we'll be focusing on for the majority of this talk today. And something new, which is my main role, and also Erica's in the park system, is dealing with our educational programs. And so hosting field trips from K through 12, putting on larger educational events for the public as well, and a host of other special events, which I'll also touch on later in this presentation. So when it comes to hiking in North Dakota, here I just briefly listed the state parks, so all 13 state parks in our true recreation areas, and the approximate number of hiking trails that we have in each of those locations. So I'm not going to read this to you. This will obviously be available, and it's available on our website. But all in all, in the North Dakota state parks and recreation areas that we manage, there's approximately 186 miles of hiking trails. But again, that's just in the property that we manage. So for instance, for your 3 upcoming hikes this summer, so at Fort Ransom next week, there's 15.5 miles of trail in that particular park. Cross Ranch next month has 13 miles. And then in August, when you're up here at Turtle River State Park, there's approximately 12 miles of trails to choose from. But we're sort of blessed in North Dakota in that, in addition to the hiking opportunities we have in our state parks, we have many other significant trails in the state. And so this is not an inclusive list, just to highlight some of them. But of course, the Mattahay Trail extending from south of Medora all the way to the north unit of Theodore-Roosevelt National Park near Watford City. There's 144 miles of trails associated with that particular trail. The North Country National Scenic Trail actually starts in North Dakota. And so there's over 400 miles of this trail in North Dakota itself. It starts at its beginning trailhead is at Lake Sakakawea State Park by Pick City. And when this national trail is finished, it's going to extend 4,600 miles to the east and end on the border of New York and Vermont. And so we're blessed to have almost 10% of that entire national trail in the state of North Dakota. Also, don't forget that many of the national and state wildlife management or wildlife refuges also have hiking trails. And so feel free to look those up as well. And we in North Dakota boasts the largest number of wildlife refuges per state in the country. And then of course we have city and county parks. Now, some of the miles associated with these particular cities are paved trails, and so maybe by definition are quite hiking trails. But again, so whether you're looking for natural or hiking trails, there are, for instance, Bismarck has approximately 78 miles of trail, Fargo 63, and you can pick your favorite large city. And of course, different counties and cities have their own trail systems as well. And so I think we're really fortunate in North Dakota to have city and county park districts, as well as state parks and recreation, to provide all these trails and all this public land and all these opportunities to the citizens of North Dakota. Now, when it comes to hiking trails, as the video mentioned to kick off this webinar, they can vary in both length and difficulty. Anything from gentle leisurely strolls to more strenuous challenges and elevation changes. So if we focus on the trails that we manage here in the state park system, our website, which I'll show you in a little bit, lists the length of each trail, whether it's a loop or back and forth, the length of that particular trail. And it also lists some of the features that you would find as you hike along that particular trail. And so I'll show you guys a few of those websites later on. The one thing, though, that I will admit that our website does not have is it doesn't have how difficult those trails are. And so if you are interested in, say you want to hike the Old Oak Trail at Lake Metagoshi State Park, to figure out, is that a fairly flat trail? Is it, fairly strenuous or not? You just have to call that particular park that you're interested in, inquire directly with them. And at that same time, you can also inquire about trail conditions. So is it muddy? If you're hiking in the winter, how much snowfall? Is it very icy? Is a trail open or closed? With the April blizzards and followed by the rainfall, a lot of the trails obviously have had some damage in some of our locations. And so you always want to call ahead of time and just find out a day or two before you arrive in the state park and inquire about the current conditions of that particular trail. Now I'm going to turn it over to Erica, who again is able to be live out in Turtle River State Park to kind of go over some hiking tips and tricks of the trade, so to speak.
All right. So one of the things that you have to think about when you're going out for your hike is hike at your own pace. You're not going to be it's not a race for anybody. Go out there and enjoy it. Don't overwork yourself for no reason. So take some time, enjoy those things out on the trail. We have a lot of cool features that are out there, a lot of wildflowers and things to enjoy as well. But don't overexert yourself. I mean, if you do, maybe ask one of those questions if there's benches on the trails or if there's something like that you can stop and take a break, or if there's picnic areas nearby, that might be a different situation too. So you can try and find your limit if you don't know your limit. Wear appropriate clothes and shoes. Okay, so if you're going to be out in the woods at this time of the year, you're not going to be in a full sweatshirt and full, gear. Definitely wear things that are comfortable for the situation, but still appropriate. So maybe you're going to have some moisture wicking clothes on, something like that. Wear those shoes that you've already broken in, no brand new shoes. I know I have a few shoes of myself that could use a little bit more breaking in before I hit the trail. And make sure they're supportive too. That's something that just because they're comfortable around the house doesn't mean they're going to be comfortable for miles. Take plenty of water. So I know Susan's book was about bringing her dog along too. That's something you need to plan for too, not just water for yourself, but water for your dog if you're bringing your dog. I know that was one of the hard things when I went down to the Cheyenne last fall, is that there were no water stops available anymore, and I had to pack in 3 times as much water than I was planning on because of my dog. So something to consider too. So make sure you're getting enough water, and they recommend a 1/2 liter per hour if you're going to be doing some stuff. And of course, the usual sunscreen, bug spray, sunglasses. We do have ticks and mosquitoes in North Dakota, if you haven't noticed that already. So make sure you be prepared with those kind of things as well. Any extra snacks along the way certainly doesn't hurt. We kind of talked about that with Susan as well, and making sure that you have anything with you that you might need. So if it's any extra, you can use that too. Walking sticks are a nice addition to your hike. It is not required by any means, but they have the nice fancy telescoping ones that you can fit in your pack if you end up not going in a spot that you really need them. So if you're going to do low terrain difficulty, you might not need them, but if you're going to do something with a little bit more, it certainly helps. So, and be aware of the weather. Oh my goodness, the weather. It's always kind of a tricky one in North Dakota. They'll say it's going to be sunny and 75, and then by afternoon we have these pop-up thunderstorms and things. So be prepared for the weather. And of course, no matter where you're going, what you're doing, you always need to let somebody know your plans. You never know when that day is going to be your day that something bad happens out on the trail, and making sure that somebody knows where you're going, how long you're going to be, when to be back. So if nobody hears from you, that they know to, come out and look for you, or send somebody else out to look for you. I know we've had a few, emergencies over the years on the trails, and it's, things you would never expect. So keep those things in mind while you're out on the trails too. So if you guys would like to learn a little bit more about our trails, I actually moved to a different spot. So this is the same trail. So we're on the Fisher Trail, and this is the bridge that goes over the Turtle. And I'm going to move forward while I'm talking here. So a lot of our park as Turtle River was built by the CCC, and the CCC folks, Civilian Conservation Corps folks, built a lot of our nation's parks, and including this one. So I was going to show you guys the shelter today, but there's about 100 little kids there enjoying their afternoon with their daycare. So we moved to the river instead. This is the Turtle River, and it cuts through our park, which is what we're named for. Originally, they wanted to call it the Grand Forks County Park, which obviously didn't stick for very long, but we have our nice, gentle Turtle River. If you notice the sandbars on the edges, that is where the river did go up to this spring. So it's only gentle sometimes. So be prepared to call ahead for those questions on how the trail conditions are. So for us, we are actually down a few trails, mostly because of the flooding and the erosion that we had occurring this spring. And you might be able to see it over my shoulder if I take a look at the other side of the river there. So up here, there's a whole bunch of cut banks, and that's how it is all along some of our river trails. So knowing that ahead of time will definitely help you on your hike. Stopping in the office or giving us a call ahead of time to determine what kind of trails might be the best fit for you guys. So when you guys do come to Turtle River, we'll be giving you a rundown of the trails that are the easier ones and the ones that are a little bit more strenuous, and just give you guys a heads up with those kind of things. Josh, is there anything you'd like me to add to that?
No, I think that's very good. We can of course, we're going to be taking some questions later on as well.
Absolutely. And I would be happy to talk more about my park, but I know this is just for hiking too. So
we're always excited to showcase our state parks, that's for sure. So to go into some of the things that I talked about earlier that I was going to come back to. So when you come to the park, so whether it's through the ARP sponsored hikes or just on your own, just want to let you know some of the statewide initiatives that we do have. So we do have an initiative that started January 1st, and it's called the 12 Months, 12 Hikes Challenge. Essentially what this is, it's a challenge that we do to the citizens in North Dakota, and basically, I guess, any tourist that comes as well, to promote outdoor physical activity throughout the year. And the challenge is to hike one trail in a state park every month. So January through December. And so I can show you this later on the website, but essentially how to participate is you use a very, very simple link on our website to register for the program, which I'll show you. And then once you do that, you're ready to come to the state park. And at particular trailheads, not every trail qualifies for this, but so you find a QR code at a trailhead, you use your phone's camera. That takes you to a little bit of link. You put in your name, your email, and your phone number, and basically that's kind of your check-in stating that you're hiking that particular trail. And so this is highly popular. We have over 1,200 people already registered this particular year for this so far, and you can register at any time. So even though the challenge is to hike one trail each month, if you start in June, you can still get you can still get 7 qualifying hikes in. And depending on how many hikes you do, as well as the number of state parks, there's a number of different prize levels, if you will. And some of those prizes are a drawing for a 2023 annual park permit, which gives you unlimited access into North Dakota state parks, as well as if you do complete all 12, and maybe some of you on this webinar have started this so far, but you can, there are additional prizes for those that complete all 12 hikes. So that's kind of the first statewide initiative that I wanted you to be aware of.
I'm just going to pop in, Josh, because someone asked in the chat,
Sure.
do other trails hiked in other states count?
So currently we don't have any of those partnerships or collaborations with other states. So this is solely a North Dakota State Parks and Recreation program. With that said, I know a lot of people have reached out to me in my short time here at Parks and Rec, seeing if that we could start to include some of those other trails in at least in North Dakota in the program. And so that's something that I'm planning on looking into this fall for maybe next year. But it's an interesting question, but right now, I guess it's limited to just the state boundaries, I guess. So that's the first statewide initiative I wanted you to be aware of. The second one that just launched about a month ago is what we call an adventure challenge. And so basically what this challenge does is it combines some sort of adventure with also an educational component. So some of these are, hike a particular trail and then read an interpretive panel that might be found along that trail, and kind of take a selfie along that trail. So this runs through simply runs through a Facebook page. You can see the link there. And so you register for it, and then everything is just done through private Facebook messaging. So for instance, at Turtle River State Park, if you're here, you could also complete the challenge associated with that park, which is probably pretty small down here, but it's locate the CCC Memorial. It tells us a little bit about us, and then it just, the simple question is, of course, name the group which built the shelter, and Erica gave you the answer on this particular webinar, so you already know the answer for that particular one. And so that's just, again, another kind of fun yet educational challenge that people can take advantage of in our parks. And there are some prizes associated with that as well. The last statewide initiative that I'll share with you is our passport program, and this is a unique partnership that we have with the North Dakota History Society. And essentially, it's a booklet you can see down here in the lower portion of this particular figure, and it has educational information on 37 unique state parks and or historical places to visit around the state, historical sites. And there's a place to either get a stamp if these sites are manned, or if they're not manned, they have a rubbing plate, kind of like it's very similar to the National Park Passport Program.
And I can show that to you on ours because I'm right next to it.
Oh, perfect.
This is our station for our passport station. So we'll have a little sign out front of it. And then there is a rubbing plate that you can use any kind of writing utensil to mark your book with.
Yeah, to take the impression. Yep. So
so
that's kind of a unique thing. And so a lot of people get, if you have grandkids or even for yourself, it's been kind of a popular thing to kind of see where you've gone throughout the state. And again, that's 37 state parks or historical sites through the State Historical Society. And so again, a few other things. So again, when you're coming to hiking in state park, hopefully you're also taking advantage of some of our recreational opportunities, such as camping, boating, fishing, and of course, hiking. Just to give you a little bit of the educational aspects that happen in our state park systems. During the weekends, most of our state parks have interpretive programs that happen on Friday and Saturday evenings. Not all of our parks, so if you want to see if your particular park that you're visiting has this, please call that particular park ahead of time. But these presentations are usually they're all for all ages. Some are more kid friendly than others, or at least targeted to the youth. Others of all ages can enjoy them, but they focus on the natural beauty and the nature aspects, historical, cultural, and sometimes the recreational aspects that we have in our parks, to include some of the things listed here on the slide, such as, talking about birds and trees and animals that might be found in that particular park or region. Enforcing those sort of skill sets through games with the younger children, learning about outdoor skills, et cetera, et cetera. So trying to make learning fun and focusing on that outdoor education experience with the kids to get them excited about being outside and appreciating nature. Another thing you guys may be interested in is that State Parks and Recreation relies on many, many volunteers throughout the year, just as AARP does. And so we do have a volunteer campground host program similar to the National Park System, where if you volunteer to camp in a state park and essentially work about 24 hours per week, so working on helping keeping the campsites clean, answering questions to fellow campers, helping the park staff sell firewood, et cetera, et cetera. Essentially what you get is your camping is free for the time that you volunteer. So you get to enjoy the park for, months or 2 weeks or a month, or sometimes all season, depending upon what you volunteer for. And you also get an annual pass along with that to enjoy the park systems for a full calendar year. And so if you I'll have some contact information on the last slide if you're interested in that at all. And then lastly, some sort of the special educational or recreational events. And this is by far a very, very short list. The event page on our website or our individual park Facebook pages have much more information. But every weekend, especially in the summer, almost every park has some special event going on. And so, for instance, Cross Ranch State Park this upcoming weekend has the Missouri River Bluegrass Festival. And Fort Ransom State Park this upcoming weekend has Halloween in June. And so, Fort Stevenson has Maple Sugaring Days in April, where they're tapping trees, as you can see in that lower central picture, tapping trees and collecting sap and creating maple syrup out of that. Fort Ransom also hosts Sadbuster Days associated with their Century Farm down there in that state park. And so that's in July and September, where they have all the old time machinery in action, old timey music, pies, that sort of thing. Sky Fest at Fort Stevenson State Park is basically that kite festival. Flannel Fest is in the fall up at Lewis and Clark State Park up by Williston, et cetera, et cetera. And so, not to belabor this, but we have parks, or we have events, special events almost every weekend in the summer. The artist in residency program is going to have 3 amazing artists having week-long residencies this upcoming summer. So end of July, first part of August, and then also in September will be those artists if you're into those particular activities. So I will go out briefly to the website just to kind of show you how to navigate that and find some hiking information and other events on there before we take some of your questions. But I'll just finish the PowerPoint and then go off to the website. So of course, you can always contact me if you have any questions. My contact information is there. Or if you just have general park information, you can see our general email and phone number there, which goes to our headquarters in Bismarck. And then on the website, I'll also show you a page that has all the phone numbers and email addresses for the particular park that you may have a question for. So I will go out to our website. Actually, I need to still screen share.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the State Parks and Recreation website. So the website is parkrec.nd.gov. And essentially, if you, so the main sort of heading or the header up here, if you just hover over it with your mouse, it brings down a lot of menu options. And so if you hover over the destination tab, it basically talks about our parks. And so we have parks that are considered more adventurous, historic, lake, or primitive areas. So maybe what I'll do is, since I am at Turtle River State Park, I'll use that as an example. So you scroll down here, and so this will take you to more information on Turtle River itself. And so with Turtle River, so it talks a little bit about it. And so Erica kind of gave you this information earlier today about, what the park has to offer, some of the history, and then we have more detailed information about the particular parks. And so all the individual state park pages are set up the same way. And so the first tab is going to be some of the lodging. And so here at Turtle River, they have some cabins available for rent if you want to stay in the park and you're not into camping. Other parks, of course, are going to have, different size cabins, based upon the number of beds and things of that nature, amenities. Cross Ranch obviously has yurts available. Fort Ransom has those covered wagons, so you'll see all the different types of lodging available. The next tab is camping. So it talks about how many campsites and the type of campsites that are found in this case, Turtle River State Park. And then along here, you'll also find some of the park maps. And so you can find campground specific maps or maps over the whole park. And so when you click on those links, you'll be able, it'll take you to a digital version of the park map that you can pick up in a printed hard copy upon your arrival at the park. And so these are the park or the maps here that would show the hiking trails. And so this is again where Erica and I are currently broadcasting from. And so in the kind of the red or brown dotted lines, you can see the different hiking trails and then the distances between point to point.
Hey, Josh, while you're there,
Yeah.
would you mind flipping over to the Fort Ransom State Park site while you're there? We do have a question about the length of the hikes and the variety of the types of hikes available at Fort Ransom and the difficulty levels. I think we'll be able to show that there's a lot of different levels and different trails that people can go on, different lengths, anywhere from under a mile to a few miles. So
Yep, absolutely, yeah. So I went to the Fort Ransom page, and so I'll skip all this and I'll go over to trails here. And so when you do the trails option, it talks about the trails that are in that particular park. So in Fort Ransom, now it lists the name of the trail as well as some of the distance of the trail, and then some of the things you'll be able to see. So for instance, I mentioned the North Country Trail. That's the trail that'll be 4,600 miles across the country. Well, 2.2 miles of that particular trail go through Fort Ransom State Park. And so, it talks about distance. The one thing, again, our website doesn't have is that difficulty level. And so you can see that, and again, I was going to mention that in addition to hiking, during different seasons of the year, these trails are also open for snowshoeing, mountain biking, and in some of our parks also horseback riding, and some even cross-country skiing. But for summer hiking, so again, at Fort Ransom, there's 16 trails, if I counted right really quickly. So they vary from, short trails from this Riverside Trail is about a 1/4 mile in length to, about a mile length, mile, maybe 1.5 miles at the most. So again, difficulty, just knowing the park myself, I could, if there was a particular question on a particular trail, I could show you that if we pull up Fort Ransom State Parks map.
And at each of our hikes too, the folks from the park will be there to talk and to give guidance before you head out on a trail and tell you, this one's probably better for, more geared for you or whatever. So that instruction will be there. So people coming to our hikes can hike as little or as much as they want. So if you want to go for a few hours, great. If you want to just go for a little while, that's okay too. But there's a lot of flexibility and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. And like again, rely on the park staff when you get there, or call ahead about difficulty. But every park has a trail for all those levels, and so every park has a relatively flat, easier trail, and then most of our parks have something a little bit more challenging. And in North Dakota, we don't have mountains or anything, and so it's nothing like Colorado or Western Montana would have in terms of those really strenuous, challenging hiking trails. I would say that almost everybody could do a majority of the trails in the state park system fairly easily.
Someone had asked about bikes a lot on our trails, and most of our parks have some trails that are allowed to have bikes on. So most of ours here at Turtle River allow bikes on them. There's only about 1.5 miles of our trails that do not allow bikes. The only thing is that some of the parks are also horseback. So you'd have to keep that in mind when you are coming up on those sharp turns and stuff, if you are coming in hot with your bike, to not try and spook the horses as best you can. So keep that in mind. I was just thinking of Fort Ransom because they are a multi-use trail. So they're going to have horses on a lot of those trails as well. Some are prohibited to have the horses on, so those would be maybe ones that would be foot traffic only, or maybe foot and bike traffic only. So check with your park ahead of time, but most of our state parks have biking trails on them.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Erica. So yeah, so again, a lot of the trails in the state parks, we try to cater to a majority of our users. And so, for instance, Sully Creek and Little Missouri State Park in the west and Fort Ransom are more equestrian orientated parks, or at least those are the ones that allow horseback riding. The other state parks do not. And then every trail otherwise is, some allow biking, some don't on a particular trail. And then the wintertime, some allow skiing, some don't, et cetera, et cetera. So again,
that'll
when
be
in doubt,
indicated on those maps too, on your keys. And so the color coding differentiates the type of use of the trail. So you can look ahead on some of the maps as well.
Yep, and I just pulled that up here. Yep.
Some of the maps also have our winter or summer maps up. So like here at Turtle River, we do groom quite a few miles of cross-country ski trail where others do not. We have probably closer to 5 to 8 miles of groom trail, depending on how thick the snow gets and if we can make it up certain trails or not. So that's something too, is that don't just think about the summer months as far as hiking and using our parks goes. Our state parks are open year round for the most of our parks, at least. Some of our smaller outlying satellite parks are not, but for the most part, all of our regular use parks are open in the winter months. So don't just shut in for the winter. Go out and enjoy with your snowshoes or cross country skis, or what does Amy have now? The shoe skis? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, shoe skis. Yep.
Yeah, so you just step into them and they're wider and fatter and they have a texture on the bottom. So they give you the advantage of skiing as you would go like downhill, but the grippies of snowshoes going up a hill. It's very cool. If you want to check it out, Lake Metagoshi rents them in the winter months.
Yeah, lots of different opportunities. And, and again, I'll just mention at Fort Ransom, they had a lot of severe flooding in the last month south of Valley City there. And so I know some of these trails are closed because they were severely eroded, but there's plenty of trails that are still open for you guys next week. Just realize that not all of these trails will be available.
Right. I actually went down to Fort Ransom late last month, and did a little scoping out and did some hiking with my husband down there for the day, and it was wonderful. There's just a lot to still do and hike down there. So
absolutely, just to be aware that the
right.
weather, we can't predict the weather, and Mother Nature either works with us or sometimes works against us a little bit, but
That's right.
it'll be back open eventually.
Yeah, yeah, and there's just like a lot of, and they'll give us lots of good information on where's the best place to go in each of these state park areas. So, hey, we have another question here too, Josh. I bet this one is for you. How much is a pass for the North Dakota state parks, and do you have to buy an annual pass?
So the latter question is you don't have to buy an annual pass, and so a 1-day pass is $7 per vehicle to get you in the park for a particular day. So a daily pass is $7. We do offer an annual pass is $35, or something new this year that the legislature has allowed us to do is you could buy 2 annual passes per family. So if you have a family that's taking 2 vehicles into a park, you can buy 2 annuals for $55. Just helps save a little bit of money for families. We do also
And-
offer senior discounts. And so a senior annual pass is $28 instead of the $35. And then if you're a veteran status, those also are heavily discounted, but I don't know those prices off the top of my head, but that'll be on the website.
Okay, and good to know. And for anybody coming to our events, if you don't already have a pass, an annual pass or a day pass, AARP will pick up that day pass for you in each of these state parks if you don't have one. So we invite you to come and join us, and we'll take care of your park pass that day. So we'll work that out with all the parks. So any other questions here from anyone? I think we've got covered most of them. I found this really interesting. You know, you mentioned so many different places to hike that I hadn't thought of, the wildlife refuges too. I mean, that's really, you know, that's kind of, I bet you, some beautiful territory around the state as well. And I know we're talking about the state parks, but hadn't thought about that, but I bet that's really a nice option as well. So thanks for sharing.
Especially for wildlife there, obviously, you know, especially birds, especially during migration seasons of particular birds, those are great places to go birding, especially.
Oh, I bet. Well, gosh, this has been so good. You guys covered so much ground. I think you've answered so many questions for everybody along the way, so we've kind of taken care of them. But any last comments from Erica? Do you want to go first and share any last comments that you might have out there in the beautiful Turtle River State Park?
Sure. I just want to, you know, pass along you guys that our state parks have a lot to offer. Like, doesn't matter the season, doesn't matter what you want to do. We have amazing parks across our state, and you know, like we're about 20 miles outside of Grand Forks, and I have people every year tell me, how did I never come here? I live in Grand Forks and I've never been here. And this place looks nothing like everything around here. Like, stop, and you guys drive by all the time. Stop in and see our parks. Even if it's just for the day, got nothing to do, go and enjoy our parks. This is where we're at. And if you have, you know, family, grandkids, whatever, bring them out for us too. We have tons of things for them to do year round, particularly in the summer months. We're always well staffed for that, but come out and enjoy the parks. They're beautiful.
Oh, great. Hey, and I love that snow ski idea that you brought
Right?
up. That
I
sounds
know.
kind of
Like,
cool.
they
Ski
are
shoes,
awesome.
ski
You guys
shoes,
should
yep.
try them.
Ski shoes, I'm sorry, ski shoes.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Ski
I
shoes,
haven't
yeah.
heard of those. So thank you for sharing that. That's kind of cool, because wintertime, we still need to get out and get that fresh air. So I really like that idea. And you guys have done a great job on your website at State Parks and Rec. I have to tell you, it's easy to find stuff, and I'm going on there quite a bit and looking at things. So way to go on that. Looks good.
Well, appreciate that. And yeah, thank you, Erica, for that. And you can see some hikers right now in your background walking past you.
Yeah.
I did, while my camera was off, I did visit with them. Because I was like, oh my gosh, your dog looks just like mine. So,
Cool.
yeah,
Oh, Josh, any last comments from you while and then we'll wrap this up. This has been so fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo everything Erica said. I mean, we offer lots of different opportunities. And again, a lot of it is just spreading the word to the citizens that, you know, all these opportunities are there, and, you know, take advantage of it. It's there for you guys.
Absolutely. Get out and enjoy North Dakota this summer and all the time. So thank you both so much, Josh and Erica, and Susan Weefald too, for her role in this program today. Thank you very much for joining us for the Hiking Around North Dakota event, part of the Passport to Healthy Living program for 2022.